Hello and welcome to Memo Anime Recaps. Do not forget to like and subscribe. In the opening scene, Arata Kasuga finds himself in a trance filled with darkness. He hears something behind his back and turns to see his cousin, Hijiri Kasuga, running towards him. Arata also begins running towards Hijiri until he finally holds her hands. Just then, he wakes up and accidentally touches Hijiri's breasts. Arata pauses a little as he realizes he's been dreaming about the dark world all along. He makes no big deal about touching his cousin's breast, but Hijiri beats him up for it. Later on, the two of them get dressed for school and eat breakfast before heading out. While eating, Arata makes a funny remark about one of Hijiri's drawings on their wall and lets her know that touching her breasts is no big deal. Hijiri gets so embarrassed that she chases Arata out of the house. On their way to school, Arata smiles at the mundane world he lives in. However, he is a little surprised when he finds out that the sun in that world is black. He asks Hijiri about it, but then she tells him that's the normal color of the sun. Arata ignores the black sun and then continues moving. Just then, a busty lady passes near him and threatens to kill him if he doesn't undo the magic he did to the world. Arata gets to school worried sick about what the woman said. After classes, he chills out on the roof to stare at the sun. Just then, Hijiri shows up to check up on him. She asks him why he's pretty deep in thought, and Arata asks her about the sun again. Hijiri gets a little creepy about things and gets too close for comfort. She tells him that's how the sun has always been, black and lifeless. Arata wasn't a psychic, but he could sense something wrong with this Hijiri. He gets a little suspicious and asks the imposter what she did with the real Hijiri. Hijiri stammers a little and steps back from him. She then fiddles around the place and begins answering personal questions from Arata. She gets his favorite food, favorite sport, and the likes right, but then Arata asks her why she drew the sun as red in her drawing when she knew the sun has always been black. At this point, there was nothing the imposter could do. She laughs and admits to being an imposter. However, before she can say anything else, the busty chick from earlier shows up with her big gun and blasts the imposter. The imposter sees the attack coming and blocks it before it hits her. Arata scolds her for taking such a reckless shot, and also for wearing such a killer outfit. The imposter laughs and reverts the changes she made in the world. Suddenly, the beautiful city Arata knew was back in its dilapidated state. So what happened? Lilith explains that a breakdown phenomenon, which is a magic spell that could cause large gravitational quakes and upset Earth's balance, was formed a few months ago, and the darkness that ensued swallowed up the people living in the city, including the real Hijiri. Arata remembers his final moments with Hijiri. She'd given him a legendary grimoire before she disappeared and also planted a kiss on his lips so he could remember that moment. Seconds after Hijiri disappeared, Arata found himself floating through a dark limbo. As he drifts further into the abyss, he gets impatient and commands the grimoire Hijiri gave to create an alternate world that would have everyone present. As for Lilith, the school she was teaching at sent her there to investigate the incident. Upon getting to the new world, she was surprised to find the magical world Arata had created. To return the balance of the world to normal, Lilith orders Arata to either return the grimoire and live or refuse to hand it over and die. With her big gun pointed at his head, Arata decides to become a Gigachad and create the third option, an option where he gets to live with his grimoire intact. Now that he's remembered everything that happened, he has to save his sister. He asks the imposter to know if Hijiri is still alive. The imposter reassures him that his cousin is alive and well. So Arata chooses the third option and tells Lilith to take him to the magic academy that sent her. There, he would learn the ropes about becoming a mage and get strong enough to rescue his sister from whichever world she's in at the moment. Soon after, Lilith and Arata arrive at the magic academy. Lilith takes Arata to his classroom and introduces him to the students as a transfer student. One of the students, Selena, asks Arata for his type of girl. Arata tells her he likes girls with busty chests. Following that, she confirms if he really did construct a new world, which is next to impossible for their level. Arata tells them that he did. Almost immediately, the class erupts in shock to greet their new classmate. They ditch class for the day and begin spreading posters all around the school to broadcast the strength of their new classmate. After class, Lilith takes Arata to the headmaster, who commends his strength and urges him to do good in the school. Royal Biblia Academy is an academy funded by governments and organizations to research and train mages who are on par with international standards and can conduct acute investigations to unearth inexplicable phenomena. The headmaster explains a few more things and finally talks about the elephant in the room, aka the Trinity Seven. Now, the Trinity Seven consists of a group of insanely strong individuals with powers and skills on par with that of high-class mages. The headmaster tells Arata to mingle with them so they can teach him a thing or two about magic. By this time, Lilith was already fidgeting from embarrassment as she was one of the Trinity Seven. The headmaster dismisses the two from his office after their discussion. Lilith and Arata run into one of the Trinity Seven members, Kazama Levi, who's a ninja with insane skills. Levi gets down from the ceiling she was hiding at and introduces herself. After getting herself acquainted with Arata, she gets on with teasing Lilith a little before turning back to Arata. She calls him a pretty upfront guy with a good future ahead of him. Arata asks her about the others, and Levi shows him two more members of the Trinity Seven, Fudo Akio and Yamana Mira, both arriving from a mission. Arata notices that they're all girls and asks Levi why that is. So, Levi tells him magic is best suited for women as they're emotional beings. Lilith gets a little more embarrassed near Arata and ends up running away. That night, Arata lies in his bed complaining about his long day. He checks around for his grimoire and it appears to be on his chest. The grimoire speaks to him for the first time and asks him to go take a bath. Arata gets up from his bed, undresses himself, and gets himself to the men's bathroom. He finds a lady there but decides not to say anything. He goes to take the shampoo and the lady comes to help him out. Arata gets a little shocked and asks the lady why she never screamed in the first place. The lady tries to scream but only ends up shocking Arata, who races out to the corridor. There, he finds Lilith walking and asks her who the weirdo is. Lilith introduces her weird lady as Erin, one of the Trinity Seven. She tells him a few more things about the lady and goes to the bathroom to scold her for invading the men's bathroom. Once the coast is clear, Arata puts on his shirt and asks his grimoire about Erin. Although she is different, Arata couldn't help but wonder if Erin looked like Hijiri. Nonetheless, he knows he has to take the Trinity Seven very seriously, as they will help him in his search for Hijiri. The next day, Arata attends one of Lilith's classes. As the class goes on, Erin stares at Arata so much that she begins to pull the attention of the class. When it becomes too much, Arata speaks up and asks Lilith about Erin's erratic behavior. Lilith tells him she does not know why Erin would do something like that. During lunch break, Erin follows Arata and stares at him. When he's got to go to the bathroom, she follows him there. At this point, Arata pauses and tells her not to intrude on his private space. He then asks her why she's been following him all around ever since, and Erin tells him it's because she's his spouse. Spouse? Arata asked. Erin explains to him that she's been destined to be the Demon Lord's spouse, and since he's a candidate for the Demon Lord, then she's automatically his spouse. This rubs Arata, the pervert, the wrong way, and he tries to reject her. However, Erin left before he could say a thing and hoped he would understand her one day. After a long day in school, Arata returns to his dorm room. There, he finds Selena, Levi, and Lilith waiting for him. When asked what they were doing there, they all explained that they were there to interview him. Arata takes his seat and listens to the questions. For the first question, the girls ask for his favorite food, which turns out to be fried chicken. The girls joke around about putting poison in his food, and Arata laughs at them. They all joke around for a little bit until Arata asks them all to teach him magic. Lilith, who's already embarrassed from all the sultry jokes made at her, agrees to teach him the arts of magic. Levi and Selena both joke around and embarrass Lilith again. Arata stops them to ask about his grimoire. Lilith tells him and the girls that he's holding the legendary grimoire, Astal Codex, a grimoire that is said to hold the knowledge of another world. Although little is known of that grimoire, Lilith proceeds to explain the fundamentals of magic to Arata. To be a mage, one must select a thema, which is a research theme on which all mages base their magic lives. A thema can be found in the archives of the 7 deadly sins. Before she gets to explain more, a weird wormhole appears on the ceiling and blacks out the entire room. Arata wakes up and finds himself holding Lilith's breasts again. After getting slapped, he gets up and lights the room with his grimoire. They do a little digging, and the grimoire tells them they've been trapped in Arata's room by someone playing a game on them. To get out of the room, they would have to use their powers to find the key to unlocking the room. After that, the grimoire goes to sleep and puts out the lights. Arata asks it to leave the lights so they can find their way out of the room and the lights get back on. As the codex falls asleep, Arata tries a few erratic things, like breaking one of his chairs on the door to see if anything happens. Sadly, everything stays the same. All 4 of them begin checking all around the room hoping to find a clue. They search around for a few minutes and end up finding nothing. Soon enough, Lilith's bladder fills up and she starts feeling the urge to pee. She tried her best to hold it in, but something was coming out of her insides. She stays on the floor and begs the others to find the key fast. Minutes later, Levi and Selena begin feeling the same pain under them. Arata's now left behind to make the ultimate decision. He wakes his grimoire up and decides to use a dirty trick to get it to tell them the location of the key. He asks for the girls' help and they all work together to trick the grimoire. Luckily for them, the grimoire spills the location of the key and barrier. Once they find it, Lilith destroys it, and urges the girls to run off and ease themselves. After they're gone, Astil Codex commends Arata for tricking her into opening the door for them. Arata asks her what a thema, and Aaron shows up at the right time to explain the concept of a thema to him. Arata expresses his happiness over being locked in a claustrophobic room with 3 girls. Arin then opens up her skirt and shows part of her undies to Arata. Arata tells her to keep her skirt down and act normal. Just then, Astil Codex asks to see Arata's friend. Arin gets closer to the grimoire and says hi. The Astil Codex takes a liking to Arin and flirts with her a little. Arata cuts them midway and asks Arin what the Demon Lord means. In layman's terms, the Demon Lord is like the boss of all the mages. Before they get to discuss any other thing, the headmaster breaks into the corridor like a maniac. Arata and Arin walk away to another room to discuss like adults. Lilith shows up and Arata gets teased by Arata again. After getting slapped, the duo discuss random things again. Then, Lilith asks Arin why she locked them in the room. Arin tells them it was all the headmaster's idea. He thinks Arata may cause another breakdown phenomenon if he's locked up with women. Lilith and Arata plan to take down the headmaster while they still can. They lock the headmaster in a room and continue their discussion. Arin gets up from her bed and places her palm on Arata's. Suddenly a bright white light shows and Arin activates her Megus mode. She names her Thema Ruina and removes the limiter on Arata's magic Grimoire. With his magic limiter going, Arata's magic goes out of control and the school gets engulfed in a breakdown phenomenon. To stop the effects of the breakdown phenomena, Lilith takes out her gun to shoot Arata down. However, Arin stood in her way to stop her from doing such a thing. Just then, Aiko and Mira arrive and use their thema to negate the effects of the breakdown phenomena. After doing that, Akio pulls her magic to her feet and proceeds to kill Arata with a kick. All efforts to stop her from doing so proved futile. A few days later, Arata and the other students all camp out by the beachside to chill out while the headmaster works on rebuilding the school. Apparently, the breakdown phenomenon that Arata caused destroyed the school and made it unusable in the meantime. Arata and Aaron are made to work in the beach resort while their peers play around as punishment for causing such an extinction-level event. After playing around and supervising the students by the beachside, Lilith finds both Arata and Arin washing some plates. She scolds them again for causing the school's destruction and tells them that the headmaster is currently working on fixing it. Arata gets a little surprised as he never thought the headmaster could be that good at magic. Lilith explains to him that, although the headmaster can be a little annoying at times, he's still one of the strongest mages to have ever lived. Selena and Levi interrupt their discussion and tease Arata for a little while. They remove Lilith's cover cloth and expose her bikini for Arata to look at. Arata stares at her and compliments her bust. The two ladies then silently tell Arata, Lilith was only trying to seduce Arata so he can hook up with her. Arata gets the wrong idea and gets too close to Lilith. He holds her hand and asks her to marry him. Lilith acts a little shy for a second, but when she gets back to her normal self, she holds Arata at gunpoint and threatens him never to speak of what happened again. Arata gets the gist, so he nods in agreement. So why didn't Arata die from Akio's fatal kick? Turns out Arata disappeared milliseconds away from being hit by Akio's deadly kick. Akio initially thought she ended him, but then Lilith and the others couldn't sense his magic. Akio and her partner get going, but before they get too far, the room begins shaking again. This can only mean one thing. Arata is still alive. Arata wakes up in a dream world filled with musical notes. He hears someone playing the violin nearby and traces the sound to a room. Upon opening the door, he finds a lady in her pink room playing the violin. Arata recognizes her name from the doorpost and calls her by it. Yui tells him he's currently in the dream world, and although she can wait to sit and chat, he has more important things to do. By that time, weaker mages around the school were already disappearing. Arata tells Yui he has to get back and save his people. However, Yui asks if he truly knows how to stop the phenomenon he started. Arata admits that he doesn't know about that. Yui tells him not to feel too bad, that she'll explain it all to him. To stop the breakdown phenomenon, Arata will have to find and activate his thema to research. Selecting a thema from any of the 7 deadly sins, Superbia, Invidia, Ira, Acedia, Avaritia, Gula, and Luxuria, will make him an official mage. Arata thinks about his options and finally gets it. He decides his thema right there and gets up to leave the dream world for the real one. He thanks Yui for the help and gets back to the real world. By that time, he finds the girls encapsulated in a crystal ball and appears inside it. Arata begs the girls, Akio and her partner, to let him try to stop this breakdown phenomenon. After getting his way, Arata brings out his grimoire and selects his new thema, Rule, from the Superbia archive. which is the direct opposite of Mira's thema, which is justice. Once the Grimoire finds the page for the rule thema, Arata transforms into his Magus mode. He uses his power and reverses not only the phenomenon but also to remove the girl's clothes. Upon realizing what happened, the girls freeze in their tracks, Mira and Akio leave, and then Arata's clothes leave his body as well. After narrating his ordeal at the beach house, Arata boasts about his Magus mode to the girls. Lilith scolds him for showing off his Magus mode to the girls, but then Levi stops her and fondles her chest. Lilith gets very shy and moans as Levi fondles her breasts happily. Eventually, Lilith takes out her gun and blows a hole in the beach house. Later on, Selena and Arata are seen alone on the seaside rocks. Selena begs Arata to show her his Magus mode so she can take some notes. Arata gets a little disappointed and summons his Grimoire. After getting teased by Astil, Selena eventually ends up convincing Astil Codex to show her Arata's Magus mode. Since there was no one around, Arata activates his Magus mode and Selena traps him in a binding spell so she can take his picture. Arata cancels her binding magic spell and ends up ripping Arata's clothes from her body. That night, while they head to their rooms, Selena narrates her horrible experience with Arata to Levi. Levi laughs and calls Arata a pervert. Just then, they hear sus sounds from Lilith's room and get down to eavesdrop on their conversation. The sus sounds get louder and louder until Lilith opens the door and knocks their heads. After getting punished, Levi asks the guys what they were talking about. Arata tells them he's currently trying to level up his magic abilities so he can get his cousin back. One of the girls suggests discussing their predicaments in the bath outside, and everybody agrees. On their way there, Arata recounts the moments he had with the headmaster, and then asks, after the remaining 2 members of the Trinity Seven, that he hasn't found yet. Selena tells him about Yui, the weird mage who only talks to her people in their dreams. When Arata told them he talked to her, the girls expressed their surprise. Arata then asks about the last one, but then Lilith tells him the last one is nowhere to be found for now. Moments later, they all arrive at the mixed-gender bath and settle to take a dip. Arata gets a little disappointed to see the girls wearing their bikinis as he thought they would go all stark naked. Mira gets a little pissed at Arata's comments and heads out of the bath with her partner Akio. Arata takes a dip in the bath and asks what the deal with Akio and Mira was. Selena explains their strengths to him and moves on to talk about his magic abilities. After talking about a few things, Selena suggests Arata create a magic gun or sword to complement his abilities. Arata then asks Lilith if she could show him her gun so he can copy it. Lilith, however, advises him against it, as it's currently impossible to copy someone else's magic technique, as they have different thema and magic archives. Everyone concurs with her point of view and calls Arata a level 1 demon lord. Arata refuses to give up. Instead, he gets up from the pool and bows his head to beg Lilith to show him her gun. Eventually, Lilith agrees to show him her gun, and Arata snuggles around her. After slapping him, Lilith creates her magic gun. Arata asks Astil to create such a gun for him, and surprisingly, Astil creates the gun. Lilith is shocked to see Arata create such a gun out of nothing. This can only mean that Arata can copy other magic techniques. This leaves everybody stupefied. While walking along the corridor in school with Lilith, Arata boasts about his newfound ability to copy other mages' magic abilities. Lilith tells him not to get too full of himself, as all he can do at the moment is copy the framework of their magic abilities. They arrive in the classroom and find everyone sleeping. Arata blames Lilith for leaving her students and going after him. However, upon close examination by Lilith, they find out something else caused this. Almost immediately, the other 3 Trinity Seven members gather in the headmaster's office to investigate what's happening. After hearing all they had to say, the headmaster tells them it's a breakdown phenomenon. As such, he suggests he and Arata do something sinister to the sleeping beauties. Lilith sighs and resets their perverted brains back to normal. Akio and Mira get a little bit more tired and decide to handle things themselves. After they leave the headmaster's office, Lilith asks the headmaster to confirm if it's really a breakdown phenomenon. The headmaster sighs and tells them about the underground dungeon currently housing the 6th member of the Trinity Seven, Yui. Arata recognizes Yui as the hot girl he saw in his dreams, as the headmaster describes the way down to the dungeon. When he's done, the students leave his office and head down there. On getting to the dungeon, Arata and the other girls find odd star and diamond shapes on the walls of the area surrounding the dungeon, almost as if someone wanted that place to feel like a dream. Levi goes on to explain the extent of Yui's power to Arata. If she wanted, Yui could put the entire world to sleep. Some rumors say her power rivals that of the Demon Lord and their headmaster, who's supposed to be the strongest mage there is. Arata understands the gravity of the task at hand and gets serious. They all shift into Magus mode and follow Levi, who leads them into a tunnel-like structure. As they walk through the tunnel in search of the dungeon, Arata and the girls run into a bunch of shadows from another dimension. These guys look like poorly dressed Halloween dudes, but it still doesn't mean they ain't strong. Arata takes out his codex and asks it to create the gun just like before. However, this time, the codex gets it wrong and creates a hairdryer. Dumb Arata picks up the hairdryer and points at the shadows. Since it clearly doesn't work, he slams it on the ground and unleashes his cancel magic. This rips the clothes off the girls' bodies and renders them temporarily powerless. Thankfully, Levi's clothes and powers were still intact. So, she does her ninja thing and slashes up all the shadows into pieces. With the shadows gone, they all get a move onto the dungeon. They run for a few meters and descend into a dark area of the dungeons. Suddenly, something begins touching Lilith in the secret parts of her body and she begins to make moaning sounds. Initially, she blames Arata for doing so, but then Eren uses her Ruina magic to cancel out the shadows. Arata thanks her for her help and continues thinking about breasts. Lilith gets a little embarrassed again and turns her body away from Eren and Arata, who seem to be discussing a lot of things about breasts. Just then, the shadow dudes attack them again and Levi cuts them all up. While at it, she gives Arata some advice that'll help him become a demon king quickly and urges him to get there as quickly as possible so she can see the types of demon he will develop into. After cutting down the shadow dudes, they all keep moving into the bottom level. Along the way, they run into Akio and Mira and stop them for a conversation. Arata asks them why they blame Yui so much, as there might be a simpler explanation to the cause of the breakdown phenomenon. Akio and Mira tell him they don't care much about explanations as they're there to take the enemy down. The other girls butt in and try to remind them that Yui is just another Trinity Seven member like them. However, Akio and Mira weren't ready to come to an agreement with Arata and the others. Akio challenges Levi to a fight to settle things, and Levi accepts it. She tells Arata and the girls to get a move on while she fights Akio. Levi summons a heavy typhoon with her wind magic. This causes Arata to get down and have a look at Mira's panties. Mira gets a little distracted and shouts at her partner to come take out the irresponsible guy. Lilith quickly takes advantage of the distraction and sneaks Arata away from the two girls. Once they get away from the girls, they run towards the dungeon and finally find the big door to the room. Upon opening it, they find Yui bound to a dragon. As they check around for clues, the dragon opens its eyes and resonates his magic with Arata's magic. This causes a weird effect on Arata that causes him to open his black demon wings and break down. The demon then shoots purple fire at Arata to eradicate him. Eren gets in the way of the fire and takes the hit for Arata. Lilith shoots her blaster gun at the dragon and weakens it for a little while. Just then, Mira and Akio join them to fight the dragon. Since they have a common enemy now, which is the phantasmal dragon, they have to form a temporary truce so they can take it down. Levi walks over to Arata, who is still in pain from his wound, and tells him how to retract his demon wings. Then, she tells him to think of this battle as a stepping stone to get himself closer to finding his sister. Hearing this, Arata gets serious yet again and asks Levi to teach him how to shoot his gun. Levi chuckles a little and gives him some pointers on how to operate his gun, as that's the only way they can save Yui from the dragon. Following that, she leaves him to Lilith to lecture him on how to use magic to create artificial structures. While the others fight, Lilith shows him and the Astil Codex how to use alchemy to create any material they want. After getting the explanation, Arata tells his Grimoire to get ready to create the best gun there is to take down the dragon in one shot. Levi pauses the fight and gets closer to Arata. She kisses his hand, granting him some magic and a final lesson on how to get the gun to form, and then leaves him to finish the rest. Arata thanks her and takes a leap of faith as he rushes towards the dragon while creating the best gun there is. After creating his gun, he takes down the phantasmal dragon in one single shot and finally releases Yui from the dragon's clutches. The next day, Arata wakes up and finds Yui and Aren lying completely naked close to him. Lilith enters the room moments later to wake Arata up and finds the two naked girls sleeping near him. She's grossed out a little and shouts at Arata. Arata keeps his cool and watches Lilith get embarrassed for him. Later that morning, Arata and the girls all get dressed for PE. Yui and Eren flock around him as they all watch the ladies do PE. While she runs, Arata compliments Lilith's breasts and tells the girls to develop such chests if they want him to like them more. Minutes later, Akio and Mira show up to teach Arata a lesson. Arata begs them to cut him some slack as he's just a normal boy with desires. Mira then sits near Yui and warns her to put her power under control. Or else, she and Akio will have to fight and put them down by the laws of the Magic Society. Selena shows up with her camera and proposes a fight between the Trinity Seven over the Demon Lord candidate Arata. Lilith shows up to encourage the others to do some PE. Levi and Akio both ignore her and activate Magus mode to continue their fight from the dungeon. Soon enough, Aaron joins the fight and activates her Magus mode. Selena is there with her camera to capture the moment. She turns to Lilith and asks her to join the fight as well. Lilith gets a little embarrassed as usual and holds her breasts. Yui licks her lips and connects to her archive. She activates Magus mode for the first time in front of the people and prepares herself to join the fight. After activating her Magus mode, she uses her special ability, Starry Night Serenade, to invite everyone into her dream world. There, she leaves Arata awake while everyone else sleeps. They discuss random things for a little while before they see Mira. Apparently, Mira had deflected Yui's magic with her powers. She complains about Yui's weirdness and disappears into nothingness. Yui tries to kiss Arata, but he stops her from doing so and asks to know more about her. Yui throws a tantrum, but then starts explaining a few things about herself to Arata. Turns out she's been asleep for so long that she didn't have enough time to make friends. The only person who saw her as a human being was Levi, the ninja. Arata feels sorry for her and pats her head. He becomes her friend that instant and proceeds to touch her body. Just as he's about to fulfill his perverted desires, Lilith, while in her sleep, tells him to stop. Arata is a little shocked at this, but then again, it's Lilith. In the end, Yui ends up kissing Arata's cheeks to thank him for saving her. Then, the dream world morphs back into the real one. This time the girls were all around Arata and Yui, who were both sleeping soundly on the bed. Now that he's met 6 of them, they can only hope his luck brings them to find the 7th one. Elsewhere, Mira is seen taking her bath in the bathhouse. She gets so deep in her thoughts that she fails to realize Akio sneaking up behind her. Akio startles her and causes her to trip and fall. Later on, Akio helps her up and joins her in the bath. There, she urges her friend, Mira, to open up to her. After much persuasion from Akio, Mira finally opens up. Apparently, she was a little scared of the breakdown phenomena happening lately. She fears they may have some connection with the Demon Lord candidate. Akio tells her not to worry too much about things. With her on Mira's side, there's nobody as formidable as them. She should focus on being a good head of Grimoire society while Akio becomes her sword. Later that night, thunder strikes the academy and causes a breakdown phenomenon. The next morning, everyone puts the blame on Yui and Arata, but Arata defends himself and makes sure Yui has nothing to do about the break-in. Moving on, Mira and Lilith relate the type of magic felt there to the one they felt in the library. This can only mean one thing: a ghost is there to haunt them. Arata, Levi, Yui, and Aaron all gather together to talk about the ghost that broke into their school. Apparently, the first occurrence of such a phenomenon happened a few years ago. That night, the bad weather awakened something inside one of the twin sisters studying in the library while the others slept. Suddenly, the windows shattered and the elder one of the twin sisters disappeared. Arata gets invigorated enough to start an investigation. He gets back to Lilith and the others and informs them of the investigation and finds Selena sulking all alone in one part of the library. He walks towards her and asks her why she's sulking. Before she could tell him the truth, some weird purple magic attacked the school and teleported Arata and the girls to another place called the Eternal Library. Everyone gets into their Magus mode and Arata fondles Selena's chest in preparation to face the enemy. A dark magic attack is thrown at Arata. Thankfully, Selena pushed him out of the way. Arata looks up and finally sees the last member of the Trinity Seven, aka Lisa. Lisa is a rogue mage who has developed a knack for taking people's magic with her, magic-draining powers. She entertains the girls with a few facts about herself and teleports herself to Arata to steal his magic. Selena quickly blocks her and pushes Arata out of the way. Lisa gets back to explaining a few more gibberish about her magic arts and moves on to suck out a little of Selena's magic. Suddenly, Mira's magic detection orb read an insane amount of impure magic. Lisa grows black wings and becomes a Demon Lord candidate just like Arata. In the meantime, Selena suffers from extremely high magic drainage. Her elder twin sister Lisa left her with barely enough magic for her to survive. She stays down in Arata's hands and keeps panting for air. Judging by the terrible state Selena was in, Lilith challenges Lisa for being so wicked and putting her sister into such trouble. After trying and failing to talk her out of her madness, Arata steps in. He condemns Lisa for trying to steal her own sister's magic and activates his Magus mode to fight Lisa. To his surprise, however, Lisa is seen sitting down and taking notes of the strengths and weaknesses in his magic. Everyone is surprised to see her do such a thing. They ask her about it and she explains to them that she also stole some of Selena's research alongside her magic. From the looks of things, Lisa wanted Arata to join her side. She tries inviting him to join her in her evil ways. Since Arata's too much of a good boy, he refuses to join her. Lisa gets a little desperate and decides to do the impossible. She gets close to Arata and seduces him. Arata lets his guard down and allows Lisa to kiss. Little did he know that she'd just sucked out all his magic powers. After the kiss, Lisa's power quadruples in strength, and Arata's body becomes weak. Suddenly, her wings become bigger, and Lisa decides to test her newfound powers. She flicks her fingers and uses Arata's rule power to rip the clothes off all the girls except Mira, who had her deflecting magic on, and Levi, who moved out of the spell's way. Levi plans her next attack with Mira and makes the first move against Lisa. Lisa gravely underestimates Levi's power and nearly regrets it. Luckily for her, she managed to dodge Levi's most deadly attack. After a failed first attack, Levi gets back to her normal self and prepares herself for Lisa's counterattack. Before she knows it, Lisa teleports behind her and binds her left arm with one of her binding magical abilities. Levi lunges into the air and breaks the binding spell Lisa had on her. She acknowledges Lisa's strength and leaves her to Mira's attack. By that time, Mira had finished her analysis and prepared her magic orb to attack Lisa. Initially, Lisa underestimates Mira again, but when she senses the power in the attack, she gets worried. In a split second, Mira uses her largest magic attack on Lisa and waits for her to make the next move. Lisa disappears into her world of limbo and sneaks behind Mira to steal some of her power. However, Mira already sensed her coming a mile away, and she dodged the attack gracefully. Lisa returns to the real world and thanks Arata's magic for saving her. Just then, Arata gets back up to see Aaron and Lilith checking up on him. He thanks them for helping him out and apologizes for falling into Lisa's trap. The girls also make him know that his being alive is all thanks to the grimoire in his hands, and nothing more. Arata thanks his grimoire for saving him and gets a deeper understanding of Lisa's power. Rather than back down, Arata gets back up and challenges Lisa to a rematch. Lisa makes a weird joke about Hijiri and gets punished for it. As Arata's rage grows, the wings on Lisa's back react to it. Levi knows what's about to happen, so she grabs her kunai, lunges herself into the air, and approaches Lisa. Just as she's about to hit her, she teleports. Lisa also teleports, but she returns to the world a second too late, and Levi manages to corner her. This makes Lisa worry a little as she knows she just lost her competitive advantage. She tries figuring out Levi's teleportation pattern, but then it is already too late for that to happen. In the end, Levi cuts her wings and renders her powerless for the meantime. Lieza knows that her loss is due to her lack of mastery over Arata's magic. So, she retreats for now to know more about Arata's powers. Not long after she left, the Eternal Library morphs back into their school's library. The girls turn to Arata and blame him for being so dumb and falling into Lisa's trap. Arata gives them all a sheepish look and turns his sights to Mira, who is half naked. After getting embarrassed yet again by Arata, Mira decides to train him so he can be stronger the next time Lisa comes to attack him. Up next, Mira and Akio take Arata outside to the yard to train him on how to make magic spells. Arata begs them to go easy on him, but there isn't any time to go through the entire process. This means Arata has to learn fast or else he'll die. Without explaining further, Akio stomps her feet on the ground and chases after Arata, who runs for dear life. Back inside the school, Lilith visits Selena's resting place. There, she finds Yui playing the violin to soothe her pain, and Aaron standing there and staring into the yard from the window. The girls get to talk about Arata again, as they hope to see results from the training soon. Levi shows up okay, and joins the other girls to check up on Selena. In the meantime, Arata gets kicked in the head and sent flying straight towards Mira. Upon landing on her, he places his hands firmly on her chest and urges her to calm down. Although he knows he's going to bleed soon, he begs Mira to listen to what he has to say first. When he's done with his perverted speech, he allows Mira to do what she wants to him. Mira screams out and kicks Arata in the head. Arata cleans his bleeding forehead and asks Akio for the next lesson in his training. This time, Akio asks him to try blocking her attacks next time. If he keeps dodging, he won't learn how to deflect Lisa's attacks when she comes back for him. Since he already knows how to copy magic abilities, then this shouldn't be too hard for him. Moments after his second training begins, Lisa returns to the school and brings her shadow friends along with her. She attaches the shadows to the weaker students in the school and sucks their magic after ripping their clothes off. The headmaster arrives on the scene with his assistant and acts like a maniac before getting serious. Lisa also arrives a few minutes later, and the headmaster sends his assistant off to secure the school and the students while he faces Lisa. Again, Lisa underestimates the headmaster and attacks him blindly after insulting his intelligence. The headmaster dispels her first shadow attack and appears behind her. He holds her up and gives a lecture about underestimating her enemy. Lisa breaks herself from his hold and attacks him a second time. This time, she binds him with Selena's magic. The headmaster gives her another lecture before invoking a spell to counter Selena's binding magic. He pauses the fight and then gives another lecture about analyzing the composition and format of a magic spell. At this point, Lisa is nothing but impressed at the headmaster's analytical prowess. She vows to make good use of it when she finally gets her hands on his magic. Before she unleashes her final attack, the headmaster lets her see his grimoire, which is Hell's Gate itself. Liesa stands there shocked at the mere sight of such a powerful grimoire. The headmaster shows off his grimoire, Solomon's Gate, to discourage Lisa and probably stop her from attacking the school without putting up too much of a fight. Knowing the headmaster, Lisa pulls her ultimate trump card. She pulls up her bra and exposes her chest. The dumb headmaster leaves his haven and runs towards Lisa. She lures into an opening and slaps him out of the room before heading to Selena's room. The headmaster admits defeat, but then reminds Lisa what happens to those who acquire magic way greater than them. Meanwhile, Akio, Mira, and Arata all hear the noise from inside the school. This means they have to train much faster and get back to the school to stop Lise from actually killing someone. To do this, however, Arata will have to copy Akio's magic technique, the mantra enchant. As they think of a way to achieve such a feat in a short time, Astil Codex, the grimoire breaks the good news to them. She's already copied the process to the mantra enchant ages ago. Before commending her for a job well done, Akio and Mira express their surprise at the actual power of the grimoire. Astil Codex then shocks them again by rewriting her coding and morphing into a human. Mira and Akio are even more shocked to see a grimoire come to life. Aren immediately senses the summoning of the grimoire from inside Selena's room. Before she can say anything, though, Lisa shows up and enters the cheap trap Levi placed at the doorstep. She quickly cuts herself out of the trap and walks over to the bed to check up on her sister. She regrets not having the chance to turn her into an evil mage, but then again, it's not like Selena would just turn evil anytime soon. Selena wakes up after hearing her sister's voice and proposes a contest. If Arata can beat Lisi in a matchup, then Lisi will turn good and come back to the Trinity Seven. Lisi holds her hand and lets her know it's virtually impossible to revert her evil ways. She puts Selena back to sleep and summons her evil demon wings to attack the girls. Just then, Arata shows up with the enhanced mantra enchantment and stops Lise from harming the girls with Astil Codex's help. Astil introduces herself as Sora to the girls and leaves the explanation to Arata. Apparently, Astil Codex had told Arata to imbibe his willpower into the mantra enchant magic so he could create magic strong enough to defeat Lise. Akio seconded Astil's claims and advised Arata to put every single bit of willpower into the mantra, as that would make any magic spell 10 times stronger. After he gets it, Akio infuses her power into Arata's grimoire and passes out for a short while. Now that he's here, Arata needs to hold up his reputation as the Demon Lord candidate. He rushes towards Lise to make the first move, but then stops midway when her bra falls off her well-rested chest. Lise blames this on Arata, but then Arata looks confused just like the rest of the girls. Maybe she didn't get her bra straps done on time? Anyways, they all pause the fight for a while and take a moment to yap on and on about kisses, chests, and plumpness. Thankfully, Lisa gets her clothes back on and readies herself for a fight. Arata summons the blue mantra enchant dragon and charges at Lisa's chest to plant the mantra on her. Lisa sees him coming and teleports behind him. Arata sees this as well and tries to attack her. However, this doesn't go well as Lisa begins teleporting to all parts of the room. She catches Arata's blind spot and places her hand on his chest. Fortunately for Arata, his entire body had already been reinforced, so Lisa's spells didn't work. She gets back to try another approach. Again, they both pause the fight and talk about perverted things. When they're done, Lisa decides to use the strongest spell in her archive. She uses the Lost Technica secret spell of Asadia by Al Peor and slows down time in the entire school. This spell makes time move so slowly that everyone appears to be frozen. After giving Arata a short explanation of her spell's concept, Liesa gives them enough time to say their goodbyes before she also freezes them in her spell. Arata, after realizing what's coming for him, smiles deeply and dares Lisa to come for his magic. Moments before Lisa freezes him and Sora in time, he sticks out his tongue and formulates a plan with her. Lisa suspects something fishy in their glances but passes it off as nothing. She freezes Arata in time, walks up to him, and kisses him. After doing the deed, she gives a burst of evil laughter and begins to feel the effects of the mantra enchant again. As she falls to her knees, writhing in pain, Arata and Sora break out of the time spell and show her the real mantra sedum on his tongue. Apparently, When Lisa kissed his tongue, she touched Sidham and got nothing in return. Even worse, Lisa loses control over her magic powers and becomes too powerless to even break out of the time freeze state. Rather than condemn her, Arata hugs the powerless Lisa and begs her to come back to the Trinity Seven. Lisa gets a little emotional and admits the bitter truth about the last crest she used to freeze time. It's been known that any caster who uses the time freeze spell will most likely get trapped in there, as there's currently no spell known to break off the last crest. Lise accepts her fate and kisses Arata for real this time before returning them to the real world. Arata begs her to remember her sister and break out there with every fiber in her being. Lisa smiles and releases the time freeze spell. Arata, upon getting back to the real world, finds himself fondling Lilith's chest again. After punishing him, everyone turned their sights to poor Selena, who was still worried sick about her sister. Although Lisi was an evil mage to the end, Mira still grants Sora and Selena the authority to teach Arata the arts of the Logos arts, so he can get enough experience to release Lisa from the time freeze spell. Once she gives the decree, she leaves the room with Akio. Arata gets up and promises to get Lisa back. Just right outside the school, the headmaster and his assistant get ready to assess the school in the far west that was just attacked and wiped out by Iscariot, an evil mage cult housing other evil mages like Lisi. A few days later, Arata begins his training on the Logos magic art. During one of his lessons on drawing magic circles, he has some trouble focusing and asks Levi and the other ladies for help. Levi advises he lick his fingers, but then even Arata knows that that's too perverted for him. Besides, he would like to have his finger sucked by Levi after he gets the hang of the hard task. Yui even suggests holding her chest for some inspiration. However, Arata refuses the kind gestures and saves them for later. This shocks Lilith herself, who was busy watching over Arata from a safe space. After his lessons for the day, she follows him to his dorm and commends his recent hard work and knack for learning the magic arts. She ends up following Arata into his room to discuss a few things about his lessons. Soon, Sora morphs into a human and joins the conversation. Lilith tells him that although he's grown to love learning magic, she still worries about what could go wrong. If he gets too cocky as learning the Logos, magic arts is delicate. Arata weighs out the risks of what he's currently learning and lets Lilith know that he's prepared to undergo any risk as long as he saves Laezi from the terrible fate that awaits her. Before Lilith could say any other thing, the PA system summoned Arata and Lilith to the headmaster's office. There, Arata bumps into Mira and ends up seeing her panties again. Mira scolds him as usual and the headmaster gets a good laugh. Soon after, the other members of the Trinity Seven are there to see the headmaster. The headmaster breaks the good news to the group and promotes Arata to the assistant head chief of inspection in the school. Mira gets a little surprised and asks the headmaster to reconsider his decision. The headmaster urges her not to worry, and that he'll be assigning Lilith to supervise Arata in his journey to becoming a great assistant. Mira gets a little more suspicious and asks the headmaster why he's suddenly promoting Arata to such a prestigious rank. The headmaster tells them about the school in the west that got obliterated the other day. He tells them they're to head there and investigate the abandoned building to find more information. After the meeting, the other girls gather in Arata's room. Lilith gets teased and embarrassed again by her people, but this time, Arata does his best to stay out of looking at anybody's chests. After joking around, Arata asks Lilith about the respective archives the others belong to. After mentioning the respective archives the others belong to, Lilith stops and gets a little nervous about her own. Arata tries to get her to say it to him, but she is too embarrassed to even speak it out. After much persuasion, Lilith finally tells Arata her own thema, which is lust from the archive of Luxuria. Arata starts understanding why she's too embarrassed about her powers and body. Lilith gets on the floor and cries a little. Arata teases her and almost gets his head blown for it. He quits making fun of Lilith and moves on to ask the others about their respective themas. From the looks of things, Levi can't envy others, Aaron can't get pissed at anything, and Lilith's not as lustful as her powers show her to be. Once they're done with their meeting, Lilith begins tutoring Arata on how to become a chief inspector. Time flies by and Arata calls it a day. He gets up and finds Lilith fast asleep, so he gets a blanket and covers her with it. He then throws himself to the bed to rest up. Just then, his codex, Sora, sits on his lap and teases him a little. Mira and Akio come in at the wrong time and catch Sora sitting on Arata's lap. Mira shrieks at the mere sight of a girl sitting on Arata's lap and scolds Arata yet again for doing vile things to his grimoire. She eventually settles down and admits that she came there to check up on him to see whether he was studying or not. Akio, however, spills the truth about Mira caring a lot for Arata's progress recently. She even had to change her underwear for him just so she could get comfy with him being around her. Mira gets very embarrassed and punishes Arata for it. When they get serious, they discuss the breakdown phenomenon that took out the schools in the West. Akio tells him about the great Liber Magic Academy that was destroyed about the same time Lizzie attacked them. Sora asks how they plan on getting to the Biblia Magic Academy. Akio tells them about the great magic teleporter that could transport them to another city in an instant. Arata gets very excited and gets eager to try the magic teleporter. Just then, Sora changes the topic and makes a sultry remark about Mira's breasts. Suddenly, the conversation spirals down a horrible road for Mira as everybody starts teasing her. At one point in the conversation, a cockroach crawls on Mira and causes her to fall on Arata. Lilith wakes up from all the noise and finds Mira sitting on a boy's lap. She takes out her gun and blasts a hole in the building. The following day, Lilith continues training Arata. They take a break during midday and Arata gets to chill in the bath with the ladies. Lilith shows up and takes him to a special VIP bathing pool. They could see the entire view of the city from the pool, and Lilith believes it's a great place for Arata to cool off from the hard work of learning and studying. Arata thanks Lilith for the cool view and VIP treatment. Then, he looks a little sad, and arouses sympathy from Lilith, who asks him what the matter is. Arata sheepishly commends her smile and makes Lilith blush. She then takes out her gun and shoots water splashes at Arata. Levy and the others watch the two have fun while in the VIP pool. Levy decides to spice things up. She picks up a leaf and throws it at Lilith's bra. This cuts her bra open and exposes her bare chest to Arata. Lilith uses her gun's real powers and blasts the VIP pool as well. After their break, Arata and the Trinity Seven meet the headmaster in the vault to get teleported to the other city. As they begin the teleportation process, the machine runs into a complication. With his pride on the line, the headmaster tries his very best to teleport the students to the great Royal Biblia Academy. Thankfully, the teleportation is successful as Arata, Mira, and Sora get there in time. As for the others, they are nowhere to be found in the meantime. Before settling in and beginning their investigation, someone posing to be Hijiri shows up and tries to manipulate Arata. Mira sees through the imposter's magic and attacks the imposter with her thema. The imposter deflects the attack and heads back to her realm, hoping she gets to meet Arata again. Arata tries to get her to reveal her true identity, but it is already too late as the imposter disappears into thin air. After she's gone, Sora tells Arata about her. Apparently, she's the Iliad fragment, another grimoire just like her, who copied and mimicked Hijiri's memories and habits. She cooked and cleaned for Arata, while Hijiri was lost in the Shadow Realm. On top of that, Hijiri's grimoire is currently in the school that was supposed to be destroyed. Mira urges Sora and Arata to follow her into the school to find the lost grimoire. On their way to the inner parts of the school, Arata asks Mira why the school, which was supposed to be destroyed, is still standing. When no one answers him, he suggests that the current building they're in must be in a constructed world. Sora welcomes the possibility of that happening and shoots her magic at one of the walls in the school, and it bounces off the wall. This could only mean Arata was right, and they're now in another world. They have to break themselves out of this weird world they're in now, or else they will be trapped there forever. Before they get a chance to formulate a plan, shadow monsters come in to attack them. Mira connects to her Superbia archive and tries to activate Magus mode. However, her clothes get ripped off her body and she gets naked. Arata removes his coat and gives it to her. He then asks Sora why the school is rejecting Mira's Magus mode. Sora tells him the imposters must have done some magic trick to stop anybody from activating Magus mode. Thankfully, she's made of pure magic, so it shouldn't affect her. Arata puts the shadow figures in her hands and carries Mira to a much safer location. After they're gone, Sora uses her magic powers to snap the shadow figures out of existence. The Iliad fragment shows up in Hijiri's form again and taunts Sora into a fight. In the meantime, Arata and Mira get to a dead end. Arata finds a classroom nearby, removes his shirt and gives it to Mira to put on. Mira puts it on, and Arata compliments her sexy look. After that, he settles down and thinks of a way to break them all out of the world they're in. Mira tells him they have to find the broadcast station, which is either in the center of the school or split and scattered around the school's surroundings to make a magic circle. Arata gets up from his seat and decides to go check the center of the school. Mira asks if he plans to go alone, and Arata tells her he will go alone. Mira realizes it's a dangerous feat and suggests she goes with him so he doesn't get lost. Arata could use all the help he got, so he allows her to tag along on his search. In the meantime, Sora and the Iliad fragment exchange a few blows and keep on taunting each other into unleashing their strongest magic attacks. At one point in the fight, Sora decides to use the strongest spell in her book to cause a breakdown phenomenon that almost takes down the Iliad fragment and the entire school. The Iliad fragment quickly summons her black box prison and traps Sora in the prison before continuing her search for Arata. After walking around the school for a little while, Mira and Arata finally get to the center of the school. To get to the actual center, however, Arata and Mira will both have to climb a ladder and go up a very high wall. Mira tried going first, but then the wind kept blowing her shirt up and revealing her underlings. Arata notices this and realizes that Mira is nothing like Irene or Levi, who are both perverts. To preserve her pride, he decides to back her while climbing the ladder to the top of the school's center. Mira sheepishly climbs onto Arata's back and allows him to take her with him to the top of the school's center. On his way up, Arata asks Mira if she got to the position she's in because of her magical prowess. Mira tells him that was one of the reasons why she got there. Arata gets a little more curious and asks about her past life. Mira decides he's worth telling her past life, so she lets him in on some of her most private memories. As a youngster with insanely high magical prowess, Mira had always known not to get too close to people, much less make friends with them, as she feared that she may harm them. However, everything changed one day when she met with Akio. Akio made her experience the things a normal little girl is to experience in her lifetime, and even taught her to control her magic. One day, Mira makes a failed attempt at controlling her magic orb, and she faints because of it. Akio showed up just at the right time to save Mira from near death. She carried Mira through the corridor and waited for her to wake up. When she does, she advises Mira to use her magic with pride and stop getting afraid of incrimination from others. Ever since then, Mira had vowed to use her magic to enforce justice in the most peaceful way she could. After hearing all that, Arata gets to understand Mira the more. Mira gets a little shy again and scolds Arata for being so impure. Arata laughs and tells her he likes her normal self. Mira squeezes his neck and urges him to keep climbing so they can get there fast. Arata climbs and climbs until they get to the very top of the school's center. Moments after they get there, they find Sora trapped in the black box the Iliad fragment trapped her in earlier that day. Before they can do anything, the Iliad fragment shows up and threatens to get rid of Sora so the three of them can be trapped in this world with her. Following that, she summons the Shadow Dudes to trap Mira and Arata in a circle. As Arata thinks hard about what to do, Sora speaks to him telepathically. Apparently, the school is trapped in a barrier with the same composition as the one she is in. If he can destroy the barrier she's in, then the school will collapse and they will be freed. Arata thinks of a plan and surrenders himself to the Iliad fragment on the condition that she releases Mira. Mira tries to stop him from sacrificing himself, but Bro already has his mind set on his plan. The Iliad fragment falls knee-deep in his trap and tells him about the real Hijiri's goal, which is to destroy the world. As for the mage, Mira, the Iliad fragment is going to take her out with her magic. She opens her grimoire and gets ready to recite the fatal spell to Mira. Arata tries to stop her, but then he gets trapped by the vines from around the building. The Iliad fragment then uses Sora as her energy source and binds Arata to the vines. Then, she walks close to Mira and begins her ritual on Mira. Arata gets visibly pissed and changes his countenance. The Iliad fragment gets a little surprised and asks if Arata is okay. Suddenly, Arata loses control and lets the demon lord in him, Alkaa, the Astral Trinity, unleash himself. After morphing into the demon, Astral, aka Cool Arata, breaks himself from the binds and frees Sora from the black box. Then, he gets closer to the Iliad fragment and causes a breakdown phenomenon to completely override Iliad's reign over the world, as this is the only way he can become the ruler of the world they're currently trapped in. Sora explains the concept of her master's magic powers to Mira, and makes her understand that they will lose Arata if they allow the Demon Lord to keep on ruling. Obviously, they can't let this happen, so they activate Magus mode and rush to attack the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord, however, rules out their magic and rips their clothes off their bodies. He then gets close to Mira and nearly kisses her. However, Mira slaps the Demon Lord and talks some sense into Arata. Sora notices the change in the Demon Lord's countenance, and quickly revokes the Demon Lord's presence to bring Arata back to life. After he's back to normal, Arata asks Sora what the quickest way to get out of that world is. Sora tells him he'd have to defeat the Iliad fragment to be free from the barrier. Arata refuses to do such a thing. Instead, he thanks Iliad for being there for him all this while and asks her to tell her how to get out of the real world. Iliad tells him the world is no longer under her control as the Demon Lord has already taken over. Arata and the others laugh about things for a while and give the Iliad the wrong idea. She asks them how they can all laugh in this dear situation they're in. Arata smiles and tells her they'll figure a way out like they always do. Following that, Arata takes out his gun and urges the other girls to join magic powers with him so they can all take down the Black Sun in one single shot. Iliad happily borrows Arata her magic. Once they're all ready, they all fire one large shot at the Black Sun. In a matter of minutes, the Black Sun is destroyed and the lot is returned to the real world. Lilith and Akio find the two of them in front of the ruin and rush towards them. Arata falls on Lilith's breast, but this time, she could understand that he was exhausted. Mira gives them a little information about what happened in the other world they were trapped in. For now, however, They will have to rest up before they can continue their mission. Lilith and Akio haul a tired Arata and Mira to a safer place. As they leave, Lilith senses a presence on top of the ruin and ignores it. Now that Arata has 2 grimoires, he needs all the help he can get. A few hours later, while Arata recovers his magic, Mira gives Lilith the full gist of what truly went on in the other world. She tells him just how cool and powerful Arata was at that point, not forgetting to mention that he almost lost control at one point. Thankfully, she handled the situation pretty well and brought him back in one piece. Akio decides to tease them again by threatening to end Arata once he wakes up. To her surprise, Mira and Lilith stand against her, taking down Arata. After the jokes, she asks Mira to tell her the person who destroyed the academy. Mira tells her about the legendary library, Iliad, and they talk about her for a little while. Fast forward to a few more hours, Arata finally wakes up and finds Hijiri's apparition from the other world. She's trapped in there with him. He apologizes to her for not being able to save her when he could and promises to get stronger so he can break the barrier between his world and hers to save her. Hijiri thanks him and commends her precious Arata-san for being such a cute demon lord candidate. Arata smiles and promises to let his hand reach her next time. Iliad Fragment gets up and readies herself to take Arata out. However, Lilith gets in and separates Hijiri from Arata. Hijiri appears for real this time and challenges Lilith, one of the prodigies, to a fight. She rips her own clothes off and activates her Ira archive compound, Thema, Satan. Lilith is a little impressed at Hijiri for being so adept in her own mage research. She rushes to block any attacks from reaching Arata. Seeing this, Hijiri decides to steal Arata's magic so she can recreate him one day. She invokes a spell from Ira's might, Black Azrael, and directs it at Lilith. Aaron shows up in time to block the attack with her Ruina. When asked how she knew they were under attack, Aaron tells her she heard Arata's voice call to her. Soon, Akio and Mira show up to help protect Arata from Hijiri. At this point, Hijiri is a little impressed at her cousin for calling all the girls to come help him. Hijiri conjures a magic circle and promises them that the Iscariot cult will be back for them. As she disappears into thin air, she urges Arata to get back to her quickly or risk losing the world. After she's gone, Arata thanks Aaron for saving him and pats her hand. Mira breaks the lovey-dovey talk and reminds the group that Hijiri is probably heading for their school now that they've destroyed this one. Mira looks at the school and immediately witnesses an attack by the Iscariot group on the grounds. Arata summons enough courage to get back up and join the others back in the school to defend it against the Iscariot cult group. In the meantime, the school suffers heavy damage from the Iscariot evil mages. The headmaster and Levi are the only ones strong enough to stand against the Iscariot evil mages, even if it's to buy time till the others arrive. Levi goes up front to face her first enemy from the Iscariot mage group. Her enemy, Luh, seems to be acquainted with her. The two greet themselves with compliments and assess each other's strengths. The headmaster sits this fight out as he's seen cheering for Levi's victory. Yui lets Levi know that she can go all out since she's already evacuated all the students into her dream world. She also wishes Levi a victorious fight as Levi prepares herself for the fight. She makes the first move and uses Hidden Mirage to confuse Lug. Lug sees the after images and slashes them all. Just then, the real Levi shows up behind her and threatens to end her. However, Lug could see her coming from a mile away, and she blocked it. After a few seconds of fighting, Levi manages to slash her throat. She gets a little pissed and lunges towards her to slash her chest. Yui, who seems to be watching the fight from her dream world, nearly loses control of her powers and goes berserk as she sees Levi suffer a fatal hit to the chest. Levi coughs out some blood and gets back up for round 2. This time, she decides to break the rules and use her last crest, aka the most powerful magic ability that could kill her. She takes her kunai and places it in her mouth. Then, she uses the Thema Leviathan to send several typhoons of wind to surround Lug. Lug marvels a little at first at the sheer strength of her magic, but then she gets a little disappointed as she never expected it to be this weak. After muttering a few insulting words, she dispels the spell and searches around for Levi, but can't find her. Turns out Levi had pretended to use her last crest on Lug to create a distraction large enough for her to run away. Now that she's back inside the school with the headmaster, Levi can heal her wounds and recover in the short time they have. Levi decides to call for Lug again, but this time, Yui calls her from the dream world to check if she's okay. Thankfully, she is, but then again, she'd be needing help soon as she can't take these evil mages down on her own. In another universe, Arata, Mira, Akio, Lilith, and Aaron all show up in front of a dilapidated structure. They quickly exchange a few informational facts about the structure and use their powers to teleport back to their real world. Meanwhile, Levi finds Lug again and corners her with her binding shadow threads this time. Lug is now trapped between wires and could risk losing her limbs if she moves. Her position leaves her no choice but to summon her Themas, Seeing as she's an evil mage, Lug summons 3 themas, the Brionac, the Lance, Fragarak, the Sword, and the Cleome Soleis, which are metal wings fixed at Lug's back. Summoning these Shemas breaks off Levi's binding wires immediately and frees Lug to attack. Without wasting any time, Lug teleports near Levi and slashes her chest again. Levi falls to the ground and causes Yui to react badly again. She contemplates leaving her world and the students inside to go help Levi. However, that'll be too risky for the students. Selena decides to go out and help Levi. She breaks herself out of the dream world and binds Lug before going on to check on Levi, her friend. Lug frees herself from the restraints and unleashes a deadly attack on Selena and Levi. This attack destroys the floor and leaves a hole in it. Thinking she's taken care of the pesky Trinity Seven, Lug turns to face the headmaster. However, she gets the shock of her life when Selena calls her name from the hole in the floor. As it turns out, Selena had switched consciousness with her sister, Lisa, who was trapped in the realm of the frozen time. Now that she's back and better, she plans to protect her people with every fiber in her being. Selena calls her elder twin sister from her camera lens and tells her to do a good job. Lug gets to their level and launches an attack on Lisa. However, Lisa dodged her attack and bound her in place. Lug forfeits one of her legendary weapons to break out of the bind she was put in. Then, she lunges at Lisa to attack her. Lisa, however, dodges it and allows Levi, who'd already recovered from the healing, to deal with her. Levi manages to break her wings, leaving her with just her sword. Lush now faces a risk of dying in the fight. However, the tides of the battle turn in her favor when her partner, Hijiri, shows up from a wormhole. She discusses a few things with the group and tries to get Lisa back on their side. Lisa, however, lets them know that she's good with betraying since she's already meant to be evil. Hijiri realizes there's no saving Lisa again. So, she summons a magic ball and proceeds to end them. Just then, a black hole opens in the ceiling and Arata, alongside the other girls, all return to the school. After settling down, Arata finds himself holding Lug's breasts and he gets scolded for it. Following that, he gets up and challenges Hijiri to their last fight. Hijiri welcomes a fight with her cousin as long as it settles the dispute between them. Arata, who also seeks to find out why Hijiri wants him gone so much, also believes this fight should bring more insight into their relationship. Without wasting any time, Arata recognizes Liezi in Selena's body and becomes Lug's master all in 1 minute. After rizzing up the girls in the room, Arata and his girls level up to their magus modes in preparation to fight their common enemy, Hijiri. Just up the hole, the headmaster and the master of Biblia Academy both sit and catch up as they watch their students face off. They make their bets and wait for the first move. When it comes down to it, Hijiri makes her first move, but Mira blocks her attack with her white universe. Akio sneaks up behind Hijiri and kicks her with her mantra and chant. Lug comes in the way and gets her final weapon destroyed. Lise and Levi rush at Hijiri to attack her, but then Hijiri blocks their attack gracefully. She explains her magic ability to them and dares them to come at her. When they do, however, Levi and Lisi switch locations and distract Hijiri, long enough for her not to notice Aaron in the air. Aaron weakens Hijiri's defenses for a little moment and leaves the rest in the hands of Lilith and Arata, who both charge up their attack to take Hijiri down. Hijiri gets hit real bad from the attack and loses her power from just a single strike. With his cousin down, Arata stops the fight and goes to check up on his cousin. Weak from the attack, Hijiri decides to tell Arata the truth. Moments after she was attacked by his breakdown phenomenon, Hijiri had seen the future in the limbo world she was in. In every possibility she ever saw, Arata and the Trinity Seven kept on destroying the entire world. After the first destruction, the world reincarnated itself and kept on getting destroyed by Arata's Demon Lord and the Trinity Seven. Hearing this, Arata and the other members of the Trinity Seven are shocked as Hijiri refuses to let her cousin be the world's reincarnation tool. Hijiri tells him she doesn't want him to be the Imperium Demon Lord, so he doesn't get into such a terrible fate. Arata reassures her that the future she saw isn't going to happen. Before he could say much, though, Hijiri disappears and transforms into a crystal that the Master of Liber retrieves. Arata asks her to take care of Hijiri for him, so he'll come get her from her when he's much stronger. The Master of Biblia Academy laughs and returns to her own home. After she's gone, Arata faces his girls and strips off his clothes in front of them. A little while later, Lilith joins Arata on the yard, just outside the school premises. She urges him to follow her into town to sightsee the people and things there, and Arata obliges. As they trek the town, Arata thanks her for always being there, to beat sense into his head. He then asks how he can make it up to her, and Lilith tells Arata to take her to lunch. Arata takes Lilith to a romantic restaurant nearby and finds Mira working there as a maid. Mira gets a little embarrassed at her outfit as she knows Arata will make jokes out of it. Akio shows up seconds later and serves the two a banquet to feast on. Arata and Lilith have a good time through the day and end it all on a bench facing the river. It's evening time and the atmosphere becomes hot for Lilith and Arata. Seeing as they're alone, Lilith holds Arata's hand for the first time and gently thanks him for all the help he's been rendering them since he was transferred into the school. Arata gets a little embarrassed and stutters for a few seconds. Meanwhile, the four girls watching them from behind become very jealous of the love brewing between those two. Eventually, Arata goes in for a kiss. The worst Lilith could do is to blow his brains off with her gun. He inches closer to her, and Lilith sheepishly opens her mouth for a kiss. To her surprise, however, the pervert she's always known chickens out of a kiss and gives her a gift instead. Arata begins to act like a bird in love, as he stutters and explains the hidden powers of the necklace he's giving her. Before they die of cringiness, the four girls spying on them get up from their hiding places and interrupt the two lovers. Eventually, Arata gets to walk home with the Trinity Seven members to begin his next training arc to get stronger and save his sister. At this point, we have reached the end of our video. If you like it, do not forget to put the like button and subscribe for more new videos.